Hey, I'm Seth Andrews. I'm host of the Thinking Atheist radio podcast. I want to wish you and yours a very Merry Christmas. Now, that might seem odd to some people. Why would an atheist say Merry Christmas? In fact, why would an atheist celebrate Christmas at all? It's Christmas, and atheists don't believe in Christ, right? Do you enjoy Thursdays? I mean, have you ever enjoyed a Thursday or maybe done something special on a Thursday? Have you ever participated in Thursday? Well, does that mean that you honor the Norse deity Thor? Because that's where we get Thursday from. It's actually from the Old English Thor's Day. It's Thor's Day. And that's just one example of many days and dates and occasions we have that are named for ancient gods and goddesses. Monday is the Moon's Day for the worship of the moon. Wednesday is named for Woden, perhaps better known to us as the Norse god Odin. Saturday is Saturn's Day for the pagan deity Saturn, or Cronus, the father of Zeus. The month of January was named for the deity Janus. Our month of March is named after Mars, the Roman god of war, and so on and so on and so on. Now, if you don't believe in the pagan deity Saturn, does that mean that you aren't supposed to participate in Saturday? You don't get to enjoy your Saturday? Well, of course not. I mean, that's ridiculous. And the reason it's ridiculous is because the name of the day, the meaning of the day, is much different here in the 21st century than it was in ancient times. And this is how many atheists and non-Christians view the holiday of Christmas. Sure, Christ is in the title, but you don't have to believe in a literal Christ to be able to enjoy the holiday. Christmas is for all of us. It's for everyone. And that fact really bothers some people. Those are the annual screams of protest about the war on Christmas. You see, many Christians say that Christmas itself is under attack. And it's apparently under attack by people like me. Non-believers, atheists, they say we want to strike Christ from Christmas. We want to toss nativity scenes in the garbage bin. We want to mute the voices of Christmas carolers as they sing glory to the newborn King. We want to suck the joy out of the whole month of December and force everybody to unplug the Christmas lights and cancel the pageants and destroy everything with the baby Jesus on it, creating absolutely no joy to the world. The thing is, I'm an atheist, right? I'm an atheist activist. And I'm supposedly on the front lines of this war on Christmas. And I have no idea what they're talking about. I've talked to atheist activist friends of mine. They have no idea what they're talking about. It's very possible that maybe we just have one big misunderstanding. Maybe we need to better understand each other. And so I'm going to call this episode Christmas Behind the Curtain. Now, if you are a Christian and you believe in a literal baby Jesus and you celebrate this holiday religiously, cool. But hang with me here for just a few minutes, because there are some things about Christmas that you might find hugely surprising. I know I did when I learned them the first time. For example, Xmas is supposedly an attempt to X Christ out of his own holiday, right? We've heard this for years and years. Well, the truth is that X actually represents the first letter in the Greek word for Christ. It's not an attempt to remove Christ from Christmas. Xmas is Christmas. You might be surprised that the holiday season didn't originally belong to Jesus. In fact, if you look around, you're going to see icons that represent the earlier pagan roots of celebrations that relate to the winter solstice and the return of the sun. Not the sun, the sun. Long before the time of the Jesus story, December celebrations would signal the ending of winter, that the days would start getting longer, that the warmer weather was coming, and with it a new harvest, which was hoped to be plentiful. And so to petition the gods for good crops the next year, celebrations and offerings would be made in the month of December. The pagan festival of Saturnalia honored Saturn, the same god tied to our Saturday. The Vikings of Scandinavia honored Balder. Ancient Egyptians honored their sun god Ra, and so on. The gods would hopefully bless the land and the people, and the long winter would finally be over. Many of these gods had a special plant, the evergreen, which is most certainly the explanation for why you and I have a decorated evergreen tree in our living rooms every December. The Christmas tree harkens back to the honoring of gods that came well before Jesus and definitely were not Christian. In fact, Christmas trees were considered pagan symbols right here in the U.S. until the 1840s. That's right, if you celebrate Christmas, there's a really good chance you have a pagan symbol in your living room. Here's an example. Do you have mistletoe hanging over a doorway in your house? Well, the early Druids and Greeks used to believe that mistletoe had magical powers, was a magical plant, a pagan symbol of life and fertility. Yule logs in the Christmas fireplace? Well, those stem back to the pagan festival of Yule, which honored Yule beings, pagan deities. Think about that the next time you warm yourself next to a Christmas fireplace. By the way, you might find this interesting. The United States of America didn't declare Christmas Day a national holiday until June the 26th, 1870, like 100 years after the Constitution was written. And those who say that we're a Christian nation probably don't realize that many of our founding fathers weren't actually Christians. Benjamin Franklin, not a Christian. John Adams, not a Christian. James Madison, Thomas Paine, Thomas Jefferson, not Christians. Christians may not know that the U.S. Constitution never mentions God. And religion is only mentioned in the context of maintaining church-state separation. The words "in God we trust" weren't added to American coins until 1863. Paper money didn't have it until the Red Scare of the mid-20th century. You might not know this. The words "under God" were not in our original Pledge of Allegiance. Under God was added by Congress in the 1950s, almost 200 years after this nation was founded. The Establishment Clause of the First Amendment was put in place to assure that Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion. At its very roots, the United States was designed to represent everybody, and not just Christians. And that is why you occasionally will hear protest whenever politicians elected to represent us all start promoting a single religion, their religion, on tax dollars that we all pay. Now, you want to celebrate Christmas religiously? You want religious symbols, nativity scenes, and Jesus Christ representing your Christmas? Knock yourself out. Not only do I, as an atheist, respect your right to do so, I will argue publicly for that right. You have a constitutional right to believe in Jesus Christ and have a personal faith. Now let's examine the Jesus story in the context of the Scripture. Let's look at the literal nativity, because an examination of the Bible actually raises a whole lot of interesting questions. Now, the Bible is God's perfect word, right? In fact, if you go to the mission statements of most major Protestant Bible-believing denominations, they'll just say it outright. The Bible is inerrant. It is God's perfect word. It is without contradiction. But if you look at the accounts in the book of Matthew and Luke side by side, they kind of contradict themselves. Check this out. In the book of Matthew, the angel appeared to Joseph to give him the news that Mary would give birth to the Christ child. But Luke tells us that the angel appeared to Mary, not Joseph. Luke chapter 2 says that Mary and Joseph traveled to Bethlehem from their home in Nazareth. But that contradicts the second chapter of Matthew, which says Mary and Joseph didn't call Nazareth home until after the death of Herod, which is also well after the birth of Jesus. The lineage of Jesus is mentioned in the Bible. The book of Matthew lists 28 generations between David and Jesus. But the book of Luke has its own reference to Christ's lineage, and it lists 41 generations. According to Matthew and Luke, Jesus was born during the reign of Herod the Great. But Luke says that the pregnant Mary had to travel with Joseph to register for a census that was decreed by Quirinius. And that's weird, because any census would have taken place in their local tax district, requiring no travel. And only Joseph, the head of house, would have been required to register. And if you look at the dates, Quirinius' census didn't take place until 6 CE, well after the birth date for Jesus Christ. Matthew tells us that after Jesus was born, Mary and Joseph fled for Egypt to hide from the evil king Herod. But if you look at the book of Luke, it has them returning immediately to Galilee, to Nazareth, and there is no mention of Herod anywhere. What about the miraculous virgin birth? Well, it looks like there was a mistranslation of the word virgin from the Hebrew to the Greek. The Hebrew word alma does not mean virgin. It means a young woman of marriageable age. By the way, several pagan gods which predate Jesus were also said to have miraculous virgin births, like Perseus and Romulus. What about the three kings? Well, Matthew tells us they were magi, which were essentially illusionists, and there's no mention of the number 3 anywhere in the story. And the whole magi thing doesn't jive with Luke's version, which has shepherds visiting Christ and not magi. And finally, take a second and just look around at the depictions of Jesus here in most American Christian homes that celebrate a literal Christ. Take a look at Jesus, the white-skinned Jesus. The truth is that a Jesus born in the Middle East during that time period would have almost certainly looked a whole lot more like this. So very quickly, let's just recap, okay? Christmas stems back to the celebrations of pagan gods, and today still incorporates a whole lot of pagan traditions. Jesus came after those pagan gods and the pagan celebrations of those gods. Jesus isn't the reason for the season, or at the very least, he's not the only reason for the season. And almost every true detail written about Jesus' birth in the Bible contradicts another true detail written in the very same book, a book that's supposed to be God's perfect word. Our Constitution says that government cannot play favorites, but should represent us all. And most of the people who freak out about atheists during Christmas, well, they probably celebrate Christmas in ways that don't really involve Christ anyway. I would wager that your favorite stuff about Christmas probably isn't religious at all, right? It's decorating the house, it's stockings over the fireplace, it's pumpkin pie and turkey and hot apple cider, it's playing in the snow and then rushing inside to warm up by the fireplace. It's seeing your children open gifts. It's spending time with those you care the most about. Honestly, the most awesome stuff about Christmas has nothing to do with Christ. There is no war on Christmas. Atheists aren't out to strike Christ from Christmas any more than we're out to strike Thor from Thursday. And those who believe in a literal baby Jesus are not victims just because somebody else reminds them that they don't have a monopoly on Christmas. Christians do not own the holiday. And in light of the true pagan origins of Christmas, Jesus doesn't own it either. Ultimately, Christmas isn't about gods or goddesses, offerings for the harvest, the feast of the pagans, or the story of a super baby who came to save the world. It's really about something much, much better, more personal, more meaningful. Christmas is not a supernatural thing. Christmas is a human thing. For many of us, it really is the most wonderful time of the year. Just remember that December 25th, the Christmas holiday, isn't exclusive to Christians, and many non-Christians love to celebrate Christmas. We don't celebrate the religion of Christmas, we celebrate the tradition of Christmas. And Christmas belongs to everyone.